Hey, Sean.
We're about to start. I'm not sure what happened to Vlad. And how do we actually control this? Manage participants.
I don't know if it's the waiting room, you just kind of let them in. A little notification will pop up.
Okay. So far, it's me and you. I think we'll get started. It's 3 o'clock. Well, it's meeting start
10 a.m.
time. Yeah. Okay, so welcome everybody to the Release Management Community Office Hours #1 on the 28th of October. So this meeting is going to be a regular meeting once a month, and it's for the purpose of having community members meet with members of the release management engineering team. If they would like to contribute to release management, pick up an issue, maybe they have some questions about an issue, and how to work on those type of items. I'll do a bit of introduction. So the meeting will go generally for 30 minutes, depending on what questions we might have. And just to introduce the team members on the call. So myself, I'm Sean Carroll. I'm a back-end engineer in release management. So that means I mostly work on the Rails stack. So feel free to ping me. My handle is Sean_Carroll about any Rails questions. Nathan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, John. My name's Nathan Friend. I'm also on the release team. I'm a front-end engineer, so I mostly work in Vue. Most of my work so far has been on the releases page, if you're familiar with the product. And my handle is nfriend. Maybe I'll pass it along to Jake.
Thanks, Nathan. Hi, I'm Jake Burden. I'm also on the release management team, front-end engineer. Much like Nathan, I work in Vue and work on the releases page. Occasionally we'll work on other release management settings like deploy freezes and front-end stuff for GitLab Pages once in a while. And I will now move the introduction over to Vlad.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I'm Vlad. I'm a backend developer on the release management team. For the most part, I work on the GitLab Pages and occasionally on the release evidence and stuff regarding releases, but less so lately. And I'm just joined, so I don't know who to pass this. Sean, maybe you?
Nicole, did you want to say something?
Sure. Hi, Nicole Williams, the engineering manager for release management.
Okay, so just before we continue, I just wanted to point out that this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. And so it seems like we do have a community member on the call. Would you like to introduce yourself, Nishank? It's not compulsory, but if you would like to, please go ahead.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Nishank. So I have just started to explore the open source software. So I landed on GitLab open source software. I messaged the Shushin, Vladimir Shushin few days back, but somehow like I had got like a huge amount of work in my company. So I couldn't start with the issue which I have like messaged him. So I am looking forward to contribute.
That's wonderful, Nishank. Thank you very much for attending. And then we have another member who's just joined. 571213. Okay. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll move along and just describe, sorry, would you like to introduce yourself, Safwat? No, it's not necessary.
Yes, hi all, this is Safwat. I am from a ProResoft company from Jordan.
Welcome.
And I'm interested in this topic of release management. That would be very important for us.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's really great. Okay, so what I'll do now is I'll just kind of talk a bit about what does the group release management actually do. So we're quite a broad group. We cover a number of different Rails, a number of different GitLab projects. But just before we kind of get to the actual underlying technologies, I'd like to just share my screen, which I'll do here. And we'll take a look at this main issue, so that you would have come to this issue. We will have a separate one of these issues for every community office hours. So this is the one for today, where the agenda is. And I've put a whole lot of links in here for future reference. So if we go to this first link here, this is what does release management do? So we have these different categories. We have continuous delivery. And so each of these also has a link to more information, but I won't go into too much detail just yet. We have Git Lab Pages. So it's a static site server. It's quite a big component. So it's written in Go. We have review apps. So they're part of the core GitLab Rails application. And so, you know, as part of your CI pipeline, you might generate a review app which allows you to actually try out the app in a production-like environment, but it's a disposable app that you can just drop at any time. So that's quite stable. That's at the complete level of maturity. Then we have the ability to do incremental and advanced deployments. We have feature flags, which are a way to control which features are available inside your application. Release orchestration, which includes, recently we've created things like freeze periods, parallel pipelines, etc. Release evidence, which is an auditing tool, which looks at whenever you do a release, what are all the components that made that up, and it's kept as a permanent record. Most recently, we've been doing a lot of work on sequence management, and most importantly, we have integrated with HashiCorp Vault. Right, so they're the kind of main areas that we work in. So then we have three main applications that we work on. So those features are actually enclosed in these three main applications. So the first one is the GitLab Rails Community Edition, and there's a link there to the repo. So this is a Rails app. It's the main GitLab application that you would see when you go to gitlab.com. There is also a corresponding Enterprise Edition, which is the paid tier, but the community work is focused on the Community Edition, obviously. Then we also have GitLab Pages, which is a Golang application. The link to the code is there as well. Which I just mentioned before, it's used for static site serving. It's quite a large Golang application, so if you have a Golang background, you might find it quite interesting to work on. And then we have another much smaller, younger Golang application, which is the GitLab Releases CLI, command line interface. So in this case, it's a classic Golang CLI, and it's actually used by the GitLab CI to perform releases on itself. So it's kind of this circular process, but you can also, it's a binary. You can take it and you can use it separately to interact with the GitLab API via a CLI. Any questions so far? Okay, so then we have some labels that we use on our issues. So if I go to well, I'll go to the issue board in just a moment, but we have four main labels that we work with the community. So the first one is accepting merge requests. If an issue has this against it, then anyone can contribute to it, and we certainly welcome your contribution. If you feel that something is a bit too difficult or you don't quite understand, feel free to just, using your GitLab account, just put a comment in the issue. We interact with the community in the same way as we interact with each other. And most of our issues, more than probably 90% of our issues are publicly available and publicly commentable on and contributable to by anyone, essentially. And then we've created these two new badges or labels, sorry. So it's good for new contributors, which is the idea of this label. If you see that one, it should be a relatively simple issue. GitLab is a very complex product, so there's nothing that's super simple, but we try to make them as simple as possible. Whereas the community challenge badge label is actually designed to be, it's considered to be something that's a bit more difficult and goes into a bit more depth, and so therefore it's someone who's more familiar with GitLab internals. And then low hanging fruit is actually a bit like good for new contributors. It's a quite simple piece of work to do. So for release management, we have an issue board. Again, anyone can see this. I'll just link to it now. So anything in release management goes on this board. When it's in this column here, workflow ready for development, it's been triaged and it's ready to go. However, there may also be some that are in the open that are ready to go because they would have accepting merge requests on them. So you could come through here, you could take a look at the issue, and you might say, you know what, I think I can do that. And then you would just come here and assign yourself to this issue. Any questions on that? Another way to find issues is just to go to the issues list and just search them as normal. And you can use the label of group release management. And then
Sean, one comment on that. I think only GitLab employees can assign. I think that only we can assign things. So it's probably better just to ping someone. Yeah, and then we can assign it. I've run into that before.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, thanks, Nathan. So in that case, you would just go into the issue and ping one of the people that was at this meeting, and we would help you with that. Okay, so how to contribute. So if we go to we have a document, contribution guidelines. So this is quite a large document. It's our documentation at GitLab is nearly always up to date. All these documents are rigorously modified when there's changes. So you should consider them to be pretty useful guides. And so there's quite a lot of detail here about what to do, how to contribute. Probably the most important thing is to start here with this contribution flow, where you basically take a fork of GitLab, you create a branch, you create your merge requests, and then it goes back to GitLab. And so what you do then is you mention one of the team members, and we will help you through the process of getting it reviewed and merged to master. So our review process is actually quite rigorous. For anyone who hasn't been involved with the GitLab review process, it's possible to have, generally you'll have a minimum of 2 reviews. So there'll be, for example, if it's a piece of backend code, it'll be a backend reviewer, and then it will then go to the backend maintainer. And in each of those review steps, there can be multiple iterations. So we use a number of tools, like we use linking tools like Rubocop, for example. And when you merge the code, it will run through the pipeline and you'll see the errors. But then once it gets to the reviewer, there's many code standards that we would like to follow. So don't be discouraged if there are multiple iterations. It's part of the process. The exact same process applies to GitLab personnel. And if, for example, there was a database change, you could then have full reviews. So the review process can actually take quite some time. If you get stuck, please ping one of us and we will help you. We will help you through that. Any questions on that? Okay. Okay, so as I said, we can pick issues off the review issue board, but we have some suggested issues for this particular office hours that we would like to just talk through, that maybe someone on this call would be interested in picking up. So I've got the first one. We'll just click on that. Okay, so we have an audit log in GitLab, and we've recently added a whole lot of features, and those features, the part where they're writing to the audit log has not yet been completed. So, for example, here's a link to here's a link for general release auditing, and then we need these 3 events added. So this is a good example of what an issue looks like. These are the previous MRs that have actually created the work, and then you can link to them and you can see information. There's quite a lot of information about permissions and security. And then if you have questions, or for example, if you wanted to work on this, you would just say, I would like to work on this, and ping somebody. But also if you had any questions, you would just write them here in the issue, and off you go. And okay, so that is a Rails, Ruby on Rails issue against the main GitLab repo. So then the next one we have, so the next one we had actually has already been closed. That was a front end issue. And so then we'll jump ahead to Vlad. I'll just maybe keep the screen sharing on my screen, unless you want to take over.
Yeah, please. Can you open the issue itself?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, it's a very simple front-end fix. And I would say that if anyone have some small experience with HTML and you can reproduce it locally, then you're very welcome to fix it. Basically, if I get it right, maybe Nathan can correct me, it's just the size, vertical size of the edit field is not correct on some browsers. If I get the comments right, it's on Linux and on Chrome of maybe particular versions. So if anyone can reproduce it, you're very welcome to fix it. I'm not sure how how widespread this issue, since not so many comments on it. But yeah, and this issue is not like, we weren't selecting best issues, we just found some of them. So this is easy fix for someone never contributed to the GitLab before, let's say, and who has some experience with front-end development. Can you get back to the issue list? I guess the second one is also mine. Next one.
Yeah. So sorry, Vlad. Can I just ask a question? So this is a is this a GitLab Pages issue, or is this actually a Rails issue?
It's actually a front-end issue. It's just it's just an interface for setting up pages. Doesn't render the field correctly. There is, like, you see this first screenshot with GitLab Pages verification code. There is an underscore in the first character, and you don't see it here, and that's a bug. So small UI problem.
Okay.
So yeah, can you jump to the second issue?
Sure.
This is like, so again, very small fix. It's basically more of a, like, we didn't get to fix it ourselves because every one of us already has an environment. But recently when we were setting up the environment for a new developer, we found out that make setup doesn't work for GitLab Pages, just because when we were migrating from the Go path to the Go modules, we didn't fully migrate the make file. And it's actually quite easily can be fixed, but yeah, we didn't fix it. So again, if you have some small experience with Go and looking for a small fix and small contribution, first contribution to the GitLab, and also have some experience with make probably, but that's probably an easy part. Then yeah, also small issue, easy to fix, and you will actually help other contributors as well, because they can easier set up pages development later. So yeah, basically just download the pages, clone the pages repository, run make setup, you will see this error, and the fix will be to just not show this. Probably just remove a couple lines from the make file or something like that. Yeah, and I guess, Sean, you have a next issue on the list.
Great, thanks, Vlad. That's great. Yeah, okay. So in fact, I had mentioned earlier that we have 3 main repos that we work with, which is the GitLab Rails, CE, Pages, and CLI. This particular issue is actually in a different repo. I'll just go to it. So this is in the GitLab www.gitlab.com project, which is basically the source code for about gitlab.com. So the main documentation for GitLab. So it's basically a whole lot of markdown files and some Ruby code that organizes those files. And we have a specific generator for release management. And so this is not, in fact, this is not even actually a Rails issue. This is pure Ruby for anyone who's got a simple Ruby background. And so I'll actually just click through to it. So we have you know, this Ruby script that is, it needs a bit of refactoring, right? Like it's just, you know, the methods are very long and basically it's a little bit unclear what some of the parts of the code do. So it needs to be refactored. And then more importantly, it actually doesn't have any tests associated with it. And so we would like to add those tests. And then there's a model for those, which is linked here, which is for another part of the organization. So this also this came out of a conversation between Nathan and myself on a previous issue. And this should be a good entry point, again, for someone who, you know, doesn't even have any Rails background, maybe has Ruby background. Even if you don't have strong Ruby, I mean, if you have any type of, you know, OO programming or even procedural programming, you should be able to probably deal with this. Okay, so before I go any further, has anyone got any questions about those, or do you have anything you'd like to talk about that's outside of this list? Any issues that you've looked at yourself?
Yeah. So I. Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to. I just wanted to say that if you want to work on any of these issues or on any other, please leave a comment on the issue that you're working on it, so other people know that like someone already works on it and not like 5 people working on the same issue. And you can pick someone who you saw on this call.
Thank you, Vlad.
Please go ahead, Nishak.
Yeah, so I have like gone through a bit of code of the main Rails application. So like how should be an entry point for a developer? Like the code is like really very large, and I have been developing in Ruby. I have been a Rails developer from last 10 months. And like I'm also like finding a code bit of like a complex. So like how should be the entry point for a new developer? Like
that's a really excellent question, Nishank. And in fact, I think anyone who comes to GitLab wrestles with the same problem, because it is. So the good thing about GitLab is it's pretty much a regular Rails app. Like it follows standard Rails conventions with some extensions specific to GitLab. But you know, it's got models, views, controllers. The front end was Haml. We're now moving to mostly a Vue.js front end, but still it's still fairly standard. So to answer your question specifically, you would let the issue itself drive you. So if I was to work on a new issue, I would try to first understand the issue, what it's actually trying to ask me to do. And then I would search through the code base and try and find the location in the code where that issue is relevant. That also might involve looking at the front end. I'll come to how to set up your local workstation in just a minute. And then I would typically start with finding some existing tests that are around this area, and then see, you know, if I change this test, you know, will it cause the issue, or you know, either drive it from the test first, or start to make the code changes and then run the tests. Most of the back end development you can do really without doing much looking at the front end. The test suite at GitLab is very, very thorough. There's many, many tests. So you can run an individual test or, part of a test even, part of a test file. And then once you've kind of, done a bit of work, then you can really be unafraid of making a mistake, because once you commit the code and then push the branch, then the GitLab CI runs, which is actually quite big, and it can take quite some time. And there's many, many checks that go on in that process. And as soon as you get an error, you just click on the entry and it'll tell you what's gone wrong, and then you can kind of go back in this circular fashion. So you can there's actually two ways you can develop. You can either develop directly with the CI. I don't specifically recommend that because it's quite time consuming. By that, I would mean that you would just make the code changes and then just push them to the repo that the CI will run. However, the more preferred way is to have a local installation of GitLab. GitLab, as you know, has many different components. It's got Postgres database, it's got Redis database, it's got a whole lot of stuff. And
Yeah,
you
so
kind of
you have
go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
so like I have gone through a bit of that, and you have like a thing called a GDK, Gitlab Development Kit, where you have like bundled all the components, installation of all the components of the GitLab.
Yeah, so let's have a look at that, because that's really important. So the GitLab Development Kit is, as you're saying, it's basically a full GitLab instance that includes, our external monitoring tools. It's basically everything, but designed in such a way that you can develop onto it. And so if you go to this link that I just linked to, which is here, GDK, it explains how to install on your machine. And so, for example, this is the README. You would go to install dependencies, and I'm running Mac OS, for example, and so then you follow these commands, and then you basically follow these commands. You pull the repo, you run make bootstrap, you install the gem, and then you do this install step. So then what you have is you have a full GitLab instance running natively on your machine, which you can develop into, you can put debugging into, and then you would just take a branch against that repo and push that code. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have actually ran, like you do have like very nice commands, GDK start and GDK stop and all these things.
That's exactly right. So those commands wrap
It
other
happened
commands.
during my time. Like first when I tried, I forgot to do like stop the GDK, and I was not able to access the port 3000 for some reason. But then like I have again gone through documentation. It consumed like my half day in my job where I was working. Like I was not being able to localhost my Rails app, on which I am working. Yeah, so it happened with me.
And so then once you've installed it, then there's actually a link about how to use it, which is how to use GDK. And so there's quite a lot of documents there on how to do specific things. Okay, so I see that we've actually had a number of people join the meeting since it started, and I was wondering if first of all, would anyone like to introduce themselves?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so it's Diego here. I don't know if my colleague Max spoke at the beginning of the meeting because I was late. And we are both from Siemens. We've been contributing quite often to GitLab. I just wanted, because we were mentioned by Vladimir, and we just thought, okay, let's see the faces of the people that we collaborate often. So I mean, it's just basically to know you directly. I mean, the things you have explained until now, we know. I mean, we've been with GDK for a while.
Yeah.
So we were wondering also if there was something that some feedback you wanted from us. I mean, there's a topic I wanted to check with you because I'm in discussions with Bob Van Landwit, because he's interacting with me in one of the features we are developing, which is the admin mode for GitLab. And I was asking him that in my experience, the GDK was becoming slower and slower. And I don't know if this is my local setup or it's an actual issue that you all experience. So I don't know if this is directly related to the conversation, but it's important for us.
No, that's exactly what office hours are for. So no, I actually, I don't know how long you've been using it, but I haven't noticed any specific slowdown myself. I mean, I have, pretty powerful laptop. I mean, the point of the GDK is that it's installed natively, right? Like there is also, I think, an experimental Docker Compose version of the GDK.
Yeah.
It is experimental, but no, I haven't specifically noticed it. But you could actually you could open an issue on the GDK about that to see with other people who've had that. Has anyone else experienced that? Vlad?
Yeah, Sean. Yeah, I actually want to hijack this answer. Yeah, actually, a few months back. First of all, hey Diego, hey Max. To your faces finally.
Hello.
Yeah. So a few months back, I also was noticing that it was slower than it was acceptable to me. And what I did, first of all, Webpack actually consumes a lot of resources. So I changed a few parameters to make it statically compiled or something. That was the first step. And then I'm not sure which type of hardware you're using, but I migrated to the dedicated server for GDK, and I'm syncing my code base from my laptop to it. And it's a Linux machine, not a Mac. And since then it become actually much faster, but mostly actually because of the Webpack settings. And if you can ping me on this issue, or just ping me on this community of hours issue, and I will just send you my GDK YAML file, which contains the settings. But remember that you sometimes may need to force refresh pages after that, just because I guess it breaks hot reload for the Webpack, but I don't know, for backend developer, it's not so important.
Now, I just say what I mean with slow, because sometimes, when you hear slow, it just can be a lot of things. So the actual operations daily, like I do an update or I download whatever, I mean, it was never so fast because it has to download and check so many things. Okay, that's understandable. What I mean is that every time that I, for instance, let's say I make modifications in something or I change branches and I want to restart, that is what takes a lot more longer now. I mean, since I came, because I was taking a long hiatus on development, and then I came back, and then I just speak about starting up the whole Rails and components plus maybe Spring, because I want to have it for development. Takes about 2 minutes maybe, so it's really a long time. And in the end, it succeeds, but it takes a huge time. And the machine. We are working on laptops because this is what Siemens provides, and in these pandemic times, I guess everybody has the company laptop, but I mean, they are good laptops. I mean, I have a latest MacBook and the guys, and so it shouldn't be an issue. Performance should be okay. Of course, a workstation is always better, but
Actually, I was solving precisely the same problem. Basically, after you change something, the reload time can take a lot of time. And especially after changing branches, you need to restart GDK or something. So this actually Webpack settings help a lot with that. And we also have powerful laptops, but GitLab and whole GDK consumes a lot of resources as well, unfortunately.
So Vlad, when you disable this hot reloading, that just means the page refresh, right? It doesn't mean you have to restart GDK when you make code changes.
No. You just need to press Command Shift refresh sometimes. Command Shift R. Yeah. Just refresh without cache.
Okay. Well, that was it. I mean, I don't want to hijack your discussion.
No, that's what we're here for, Diego. We're here for whatever you guys want to talk to us about.
I don't know if you I don't know if you, Max, have anything to say that I missed.
Oh, I guess you summarized this pretty good. Huh? I'm also here to see you primarily. I'm not that involved with GDK. I did a couple small things on GitLab Pages and GitLab Runner and maybe a few merge requests on GitLab itself. But from my small little MacBook 13-inch, GDK is a heavy burden all the time, but it's kind of understandable.
One trick a while ago, I think it was Shinya that posted about it, was that you can disable Prometheus metrics in the GDK. I think they're enabled by default. And I know he said that sped things up a lot for him. And I always disable them. They're enabled by default. I don't know if I haven't really noticed that huge of a difference, but that's something else to try.
Okay, that is probably a good tip, because I didn't even know that there was Prometheus activated in GDK, and I have never used it on GDK. So, yeah,
exactly. I never use it, so I just disable it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe there should be an optimized configuration in GDK.
Well, I mean, if I may ask something else related to GDK, we have like an internal meeting with the open source enthusiasts in Siemens, and there was talking about the Git pod, and we have seen that somebody is working on GDK on a branch over that. So just want to get your feeling about that. Is that important for you? Something we discussed if we should invest some time.
That's a great question, Diego. So in fact, the Git pod is actually linked to this issue. GDK on Git pod instructions is, I'll just share my screen again. However, I don't know much about it. Does anyone else on the call have any background on that?
One of my goals was to try it out before this meeting, and I didn't get to it, unfortunately. But I hope to do that soon.
We are supporting it in some form, but what that actually means, I don't really know at this point. Okay. So is there anything else we'd like to talk about other than we just met each other, and this will be a regular meeting. It'll be once a month. In the next meeting, we won't do all these introductions. This is just the first one. And we will hopefully be looking at specific issues. So for example, we have an epic that will track all the meetings. I'll just go into here now. Okay, so you could cut, if you had a specific topic you wanted to talk about, you would just come into the meeting for the next office hours and just put in your question, and the whole meeting could center around one question if that made sense. Of course, you can also ping us at any time.
It's good to know, because sometimes we have we are heavy user of GitLab, and sometimes we have specific questions. So this might be a good place to ask them then. Yeah.
I mean, because GitLab is so big now that you never know who knows what. I mean, we had several interactions with GitLab team in the past. We have in Siemens quite a big instance, self-hosted. Max, we have now like what, 50 or 60,000 users.
Let me check.
I mean, it's not, of course, like GitLab Comp.
40,000 we have.
Wow, it's quite a few.
40,000 active users.
Yeah, actually, I had a question to you guys. Do you run the regular Omnibus package, or you have some patched version of the GitLab?
Omnibus from upstream directly. Yeah, no patches.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I mean, we're kind of a little bit over time, which is fine. But does anyone else have anything else to add to this call, or should we wind it up? Okay, so thank you very much, everyone who came. I'm really excited about the next one. We put some faces to the names now, or to the handles, and please ping us on any issue, or even just with a question if you have anything you'd like to contact us about. Thanks very much.
Hey, thank you.
See you at the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.